V has come too.
Alright, hey everybody. So this video is going to be a bit more off the cuff and a lot more lightly edited than my usual videos, mainly because I wanted to get this out as soon as I could while the topic was still in the minds of other people. And also I wanted to sort of try my hand at doing easier to produce, smaller form content. So if you want, you can just, click over to another tab, have this playing in the background, and just listen to the sounds of my voice, because otherwise this is going to be a visually dull video. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's move on. But I think that there's a lot of things wrong with that viewpoint. I think the question that people should be asking isn't, did Forsaken sell poorly, but rather, what is Activision's expectations for the series? What is Activision's expectations for the series?
What is Activision's expectations for the series?
So, just very recently, it was announced that Bungie would take over the publishing duties of the Destiny series from Activision going forward. Activision Blizzard would continue to support Destiny 2 for the foreseeable future, but future Destiny content will be self-published by Bungie. Now, this move was met with a lot of fanfare and praise from other people, myself included, but I think it also brought up a lot of questions, mainly why the change and what exactly can we expect with future Destiny content, especially with Destiny 3, which may or may not release next year. So, I'm making this video to kind of break down these questions and maybe, answer them to the best of my ability and provide my own theories for why I think this is happening. So, the first question, it's probably the most obvious, is what caused the split? So, did they being Activision, simply give it away? Did Bungie want out due to Activision's overbearing presence as the old publisher? Honestly, I don't believe so. I don't really think so. And I think the answer is a lot simpler than what we might think. Now, it's important to remember that Bungie signed on to a 10-year agreement with Activision Blizzard. This meant that Activision would finance the series, putting in about $500 million that were spread out over the decade in exchange for exclusive publishing rights. Now, that contract went into effect April 2010, which was around the same time Destiny 1 had officially entered development, and also around the time that Halo Reach was about to release, by the way. It is now January 2019, almost 9 years since. So, what I think is happening is that this isn't like a sudden change in heart or a spur-of-the-moment decision. What I think is happening is that Activision handing off the publishing rights is them honoring a contract that is 1 year away from expiration. Another thing is that what's really important, and it's something that I don't think a lot of people realize, and something that I've also seen other articles and other videos kind of neglect to mention, is that Destiny is not an Activision game. It never was. So you're probably like, well, how can that be? This doesn't make any sense. The Activision logo's on the box. It's sold alongside other Activision Blizzard games on their platforms, and is frequently mentioned in their investor reports. So, how is it not an Activision game? Well, the answer is that just because Activision owns the publishing rights, they never actually own the rights to the actual intellectual property. So what this means is that Destiny is, and always will be a Bungie game through and through. It was always Bungie's games since the beginning. Like, for example, you ever wondered why only Bungie's logo appeared at the startup? Ever wondered why a lot of official Destiny merchandise is usually offered directly through Bungie and not, say, through Activision store? Yeah, that's why. Activision does not own Destiny in the same way that they own, say, Call of Duty or Overwatch, And I highly doubt that anyone at Activision Blizzard Corporate really wanted to give the series away, given that it was still kind of profitable for them. But, they just didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. You might also wonder why Activision would give them the rights now if there's still technically 1 year left in a contract. Well, the answer to that is that the handoff is still in its early phases. Both the official press releases from Activision and Bungie kind of imply as such. So I think it's going to take both parties about a year to, work out all the paperwork, the bureaucracy, all the infrastructure behind the scenes to make sure that everything goes smoothly. So now that you know the why, I think the next thing to cover is what exactly does this mean for all the parties involved? So the first thing, Bungie. What about Bungie? So does Bungie have the capacity for self-publishing such a huge multiplayer game like Destiny? And at first it might seem unlikely, but the more I started to think about it, the more I started to feel like, I don't really see why not. Bungie is a pretty large developer with about 750 employees under its banner, according to Wikipedia. They have lots of industry clout, lots of money, and they also have their experience, self-publishing their own games in the past. Prior to Oni and Halo, which I think both came out in 2001, yeah, pretty much all their other games were self-published, and hell, they even packaged them themselves in their small offices back when they still used to be in Chicago. Not to mention that it isn't uncommon for an independent developer of their size, or even much smaller, to publish their own games. Some really notable examples include CD Projekt Red, Psyonix, Digital Extremes, Tripwire Interactive, and there's plenty more. Digital distribution has made, game distribution just easier. It's made it much cheaper, a lot more efficient for developers of all sizes to be able to get their games out directly to the player. And even in the event Bungie would want to release physical copies, which, is probably going to be really likely, they could easily sign up with another company to help distribute it, like what Warner Brothers did with The Witcher 3 and Hitman 2, the physical versions of both of those games. As for Activision, oof, is all I have to say on that. Destiny, I want to say Destiny was probably the only other franchise Activision had was running at the moment and wasn't Call of Duty. And yeah, sure, Call of Duty, still kind of racing the money, but man, remember when Activision used to make other games? Call of Duty is just really all they have at the moment, and it's probably not gonna ever go away anytime soon, but it's really hard to imagine a games publisher really only having one source of income, just only one series or one game that's that they're actually working on or making and putting out there. And it definitely doesn't help that just right across the hallway, Blizzard is just completely, come on. It certainly doesn't help that right across the hallway, Blizzard is, just completely under fire with executives leaving, some of their popular games, kind of apparently, they're slumping. There's a big, I didn't exactly look into the details, but I do recall hearing something about Heroes of the Storm just kind of, really kind of imploding upon itself because of Activision just kind of encroaching in and just screwing everything over. This Diablo Immortal, and yeah, it's not great. It ain't great. And even though I mentioned, that I don't believe recent events had anything to do with the rights transferal, Bungie probably feels like they dodged a pretty big bullet by getting out while they can. But what about us, the fans, the gamers, what's going to happen with us? How are we going to be affected by, anything, in the future with Destiny? Honestly, who knows? This is one of those things that I don't actually have a lot of stuff to go off of. I have no idea what could happen. This can go in so many different directions, good and bad. So I really have no idea what Destiny 3, for example, would ever turn out like. All the future content for Destiny 2, that's safe. That was already planned out. That's going to be pretty much business as usual. But anything for the next Destiny, it's a bit sketchy. But I do believe, with all the previously stated information, that it was probably very likely that D3 was made under the full knowledge that Bungie would be in control. So I think everything about the game's design, everything about its current development, is probably going to be under the supervision and the guiding hand of Bungie and Activision. Of course, that is assuming that Destiny 3 is currently in development, which we do not officially know. For console Destiny fans, everything's probably going to be business as usual. But for those of us on PC, I think the situation might be a bit complicated, because now that Destiny is no longer published by Activision, so does that mean that future games in the series will be on Battle.net? There hasn't been an official statement about that yet, and it is something that's hard to predict, but part of me kind of actually has high hopes that it will return to Battle.net, just simply because so much of the fan base is already there, and so are our characters. But even if it doesn't end up somewhere else, I kind of doubt that there won't be some sort of importing service to let players on PC and Battle.net to be able to transfer to a new service or whatever, because this is what happened with consoles. Like I said in my previous video, 2019 is the year Bungie will have to prove, not just to the fans, but to also the rest of the industry, that they can keep the momentum of the series going. Being able to self-publish will, keep a lot of the creative and business decisions in-house. However, if anything breaks, anything goes wrong, the onus will fall entirely on them. The days of sharing blame with Activision are gone, and that's also something that fans will need to understand. So far, Bungie has been able to keep that momentum from Forsaken's success going. So my faith in the company is overall a lot higher than what it was pre-Forsaken. But we aren't out of the woods yet, but the road ahead does look pretty bright.